This is such a great platform for all of us to kind of share best practices and do some incredible stuff. Do you guys know what city this is here? I hope so. Fuck, Miami. I was born and raised in Miami. The first thing I want to do is kind of prove myself to you guys. Just say like why I'm here and why it's so important to kind of create these parallels between all our different industries. I come from hospitality. I've been in it since I was probably 15 years old. I would promote nightclubs. I would put flyers on cars. Do we even do that anymore? Man, we never even see flyers anymore, right? That's pretty incredible. So that's what I love to do, right? I love this city. I wanted to help grow it. I'll never forget it. When I jumped out of college, people are like, you have to move now. You got to go to New York. You got to go to LA. And as I was growing up, so was the city. So I'm like, no way I'm leaving this city because I want to be a part of this growth. I want to be a part of what is going to be so incredible. And we're kind of like right in the middle of it right now. We're seeing some incredible stuff happen. So I wanted to kind of go through that a little bit, kind of chat through it. But how it started, we've all had one of these somewhere. Can anyone name the street that this is on? God damn it. That's a horrible thing to hear, but yes, that is Ocean Drive, right? This is maybe something you'd see in the 90s, right? Leading up to where we're at now, right? I want to talk about that a little bit, right? I want to talk about Prohibition. We talk about Prohibition. Does anyone know when Prohibition ended? You're one of my students, do not answer. Does anyone know when Prohibition ended?
1924?
Close, 1933. We ended in 1933. Fun fact, Miami was dry before Prohibition. A lot of people don't know that, surprisingly, right? We're not drinking here before Prohibition. But I mention that because in 1933, we enacted a lot of laws and regulations to regulate spirits, right? But within that, it took us a very, very long time to get back to the golden age of spirits, right? And guess what? We're in Miami, right? We show up a little bit late. Maybe we're going to have visitors showing up as I talk, right? My students all show up late when I'm at FIU. And that's okay, right? Because Miami is kind of a place like that, right? 15 minutes is actually on time. I think we all say that, right? But I mentioned that specifically because it takes a long time to catch up from a catastrophic type of event that Prohibition was to the actual industry. But for us, where we focus a lot on tourism and we broke records during the pandemic, right? That is something super important to us. It took us a long time to catch up, so much so that I want to start talking about Prohibition when it comes to the United States of America. When we actually look at the beginning of Prohibition, and as we start to catch up on the first thing I think of is fresh ingredients. When I look at this bar, I see oranges, I see limes, I see fresh syrups that they're making over there in the corner. It took us a very long time to get there. Why? Prohibition, all our bartenders left. We closed over 1,500 distilleries. We closed over 2,000 liquor stores. It decimated the industry. But as we start to catch up in 1995, we start to see the first signs of life, right? There was a gentleman, he's a legend. His name is Dale DeGroff. He opens up, he manages a bar called the Rainbow Room in New York. And in New York specifically, we start to see him open up all these old books from the 1800s. We need to actually start making these cocktails again, right? Fast forward from 95 to 2004, 2005 is when Miami comes into the building. Why? Because New Yorkers love Miami, right? So they come over here and they start spreading that gospel of mixology. In 2005, we start seeing the first signs of mixology entering the conversation in Miami. So I mentioned that because it's 2024. It's still very young, right? But if you notice, we're in, what is this area called? Is this Ludlam or something? Yeah. There's a fucking cocktail bar behind us, right? Where otherwise you would never see a cocktail bar, right? That we actually can get fresh ingredients right in the middle of our city and you have an actual neighborhood bar, right? We're actually in what is our golden age of cocktails and restaurants, right? We just saw yesterday that Michelin mentioned 4, 5, 8 new restaurants. Incredible time to be alive, right? But when we go back to that, right? 2005, we start seeing those fresh ingredients come in here, right? We start seeing bars and restaurants and that education and that beautiful hospitality, which has really changed the way we drink and sip, right? And that is just a beautiful time to be in Miami. So I mentioned this. I'm also a partner here at Cafe La Trova. If you look at the 2 red towels in the back, you see them right in the center. That is back-to-back world's best bars, right? We have one of the world's best bars in our backyard, right? That Cantinero movement is not only here, it's happening all around the world. 24th best bar in the world. We're going to see the world's 50 best bars. I think it's in April again in Mexico. Let's see if we're in the building again. Cross our fingers. But this is where we're at now, right? These type of experiences. And I want you to see just this picture here, right? Where on the left-hand side, they're going to serve you a big old drink, 2 Coronas, put it on your table, and they're going to take off, right? That's one experience, right? But another experience is I want you to imagine that these bartenders are making the best daiquiri that you've ever had outside of Cuba, right? With fresh ingredients, granulated sugar, fresh lime that is squeezed in-house every single service, right? And at the same time, as they're doing this, you're going to notice that one of the bartenders will start to play maybe the maracas. Another one will actually start to kind of bang on their tin. And another one will actually start to play the trumpet. And you'll see that across this group, there is a band that plays trova, and all of a sudden, in a symphony and synergistic way, the whole bar and restaurant becomes a concert hall. And it's a beautiful experience, right? One that makes this one of the best bars in the world, right? This is in Miami, so it's just a beautiful time to be alive, right? I didn't mention this, I kind of floated it. I am a professor. I teach at FIU. I had my full circle moment in 2020. I was actually working for Bacardi at the time, and I'm working for Bacardi, and I'm developing one of their single malts, and we're doing such an awesome job developing their single malts. And then, what is it, March 15th, March 16th? All of a sudden, and I get a call from Bacardi, and they said, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to start taking calls. So the first person I called was the United Way. Why? Because I love working with the community and non-for-profits. A lot of people don't know this. 54% of Miamians are at or below the poverty line. They're one paycheck away from financial ruin. The United Way kind of helps with that, right? So I call and I'm like, are you guys raising any money? They're like, we don't know what we're doing. I'm like, let's do a show and let's talk about spirits. So we did that. We raised $70,000 for the community. It was super awesome, right? I went and I'm like, I'm going to start calling everybody now. I'm the shit. Not really, but I end up calling History Miami Museum. I go, dude, let's get together. Let's do something. History Miami Museum. I know a lot of people think we don't have history. We have a lot of history. I end up calling them. We raised $5,000. I call Vizcaya. We raised like $3,000. And then one day I go on Instagram and I notice that FIU has an actual bartenders guild. And I'm like, what is this? And I kind of send them a message. I'm like, let me talk. And they're like, we're a student-led organization. We're learning how to make cocktails, right? I go, it's incredible. I go, let me talk. And they're like, we're doing a book this week, but maybe you talk next week. I'm like, what book are you doing? I'm like, I kind of know all the books. Let me talk. And they're like, we're doing Miami cocktails. I'm like, I wrote the fucking book. I'm like, let me talk. So I end up getting 50 books, and I sign every single book for the students that are on the actual call. And I'm like, I'm going to mail this to every fucking student, and I want to talk to the students. I set up a camera in my backyard, right? And I'm in my backyard in the Gables. Internet was kind of weird when it came to Zoom at that time, super nervous right there. So I'm making cocktails, we're talking about the book, and the students were so cool and so assertive, and they gave a shit so much. I want to let you know, I graduated from FIU in 2004. I did not give a shit that much. But hospitality people, right, care a lot, right? If you're already in hospitality, right, and you're that young, how old are you?
I'm a little older, but 29.
But he comes from hospitality, right? He knows what he wants to do, right? He knows exactly what he wanted to do, right? We've been working together 2-3 years in FIU, right? That type of mentality was ingrained in them, ingrained in that call. And I end up hanging up, right? And I call the director. It was Christina, the assistant director at that time. And I said, dude, should I teach here? Should I be in a building? And she was like, you want to teach here? And I go, do I call the dean? I called the dean, and I'm like, can I come in a building? And he's like, you want to teach here? And I'm like, wait a minute, are you like saying like you don't want me, or you want me here? Because I want to fucking be here, man. I'm proud of this city, and I want to do crazy stuff. They're like, you're hired. I've been working in the school hospitality since 2020. I have one of the largest classes there. I teach global beverage fundamentals. I teach beverage marketing and distribution. I teach beverage entrepreneurship. Sometimes I teach wine 101, but I need someone to kind of help me there. You, maybe, eventually. But awesome ways to teach students that want an experience, right? what I noticed, and I'm not going to hate on other professors because I love every professor there, even the ones that are a little bit more set on their ways and a little bit older. But what we're starting to notice that students don't study the same way. They don't see the world the same way, right? And I'm noticing that about Miamians and everyone that comes in here as how we see the hospitality world, right? And I want to talk a little bit about that in a second. But before I do that, 8th best hospitality school in the world, in the US, #1 hospitality program in the US, and #5 best value. We graduate the most Latino and Black hospitality students in the United States of America. We're killing it right now, right? We're doing some incredible things. So I mentioned that because one of the classes that I taught last semester is actually a customer service class. I want to mention, has anyone seen this book? This is Unreasonable Hospitality. Of course, you had to, you're forced, right? This is Will Guidara. Will Guidara worked for Union Square Hospitality, right, under Danny Meyer. So if you guys know Shake Shack, right? Danny Meyer does Shake Shack. At this time, he also had a place called 11 Madison Park, which eventually Will Guidara took over, took ownership of, and created one of the best restaurants in the world. And still to this day, it's always ranked very, very high. They're always thinking in different ways, right? But I love one thing that he mentions there. He mentions service, which we're always going to get service. Service is black and white, but hospitality is color, right? Have you ever watched a football game? And I've seen this, right? You'll watch a football game, and there'll be a person, first down, 6 yards, 7. But then when there's no other person, they're saying, 6, oh my God, did you see this guy? He's running the ball. When that's gone, right? You only have this part, right? The game is super boring. There was actually a game a couple years back that was completely silent. I was like, I can't watch this shit. This is horrible, right? Very similar, right? Hospitality is color. I want you guys to think about that. And as we continue through this conversation, I want you to think of this title also, Unreasonable Hospitality. When I first saw this title, I thought to myself, man, you're right. Hospitality really is becoming unreasonable, right? And I'm not only talking about in hospitality, I'm talking about in every single type of industry. As a matter of fact, I'm sorry I'm pointing you out. I was talking to my wife the other day, and I said, holy shit, when I taught this customer service management class, I was thinking to myself, how do they not teach this class to every single type of industry? Like, does this belong in every single type of industry? Does it belong if you're a realtor? Does it belong if you're a doctor? Does it belong if you work in wherever, right? Customer service and delivering superior customer value should be built within us, and it should be similar to, they should also teach us how to change a tire. I'm just going to throw that out there. But hospitality is color, right? How can we go above and beyond? And part of this title, the remarkable power of giving people more than they expect. And this is what I was inspired by last year, right? As I continue to talk to the students, right, I'm super inspired by giving people more than they expect, right? And it's not only what we do in hospitality. Hospitality is innate within all of us, right? I have 3 kids. I mean, if they had Yelp reviews, I'd probably have a 1-star review every time I cooked. They're getting 5-course fucking meals, right? And they're still complaining, right? That is unreasonable hospitality, right? Cooking 3 different meals in the morning is unreasonable hospitality. I do that. Today we did donuts, eggs. I baked a French baguette. No one ate shit, right? Unreasonable hospitality, right? These kids, right? But I want to mention, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly, right? To be on the guest side requires listening to that person with every sense and following up with a thoughtful, gracious, appropriate response, right? This is a class I taught with Mitchell. This came from one of our professors who sadly left the university. But I really love this, right? Because again, in every single part of what we do, right? Philip, Bar Geeks, right? You're meeting with some pretty heavy hitters next week, right? Who's your guest, right? Your guest is going to be your client, right? This is the way we think, right? So thoughtful and gracious. Look at those swans, right? Is that beautiful? Oh, are those swans? I don't even know my ducks, goddammit. But going back to service versus hospitality, right? Thinking in that way where how can we go above and beyond, right? To really help that guest, that client, right? To think that they are the most special person here. I'm going to give you guys some examples that I've been through personally, and some that are mentioned in this book, right? To really, really inspire what we do, right? And again, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, this touches all industries. And that's what I really, really love about this book. A couple things that he mentions, right? And I really love this, the 95-5 rule, right? You have your budget. You got to be tight on your budget, right? You got to always be super, super tight on your budget, right? But there's 5% there. Let it ride, right? We talk about Tipsy Flamingo, right? They do some really, really, really cool stuff. Maybe, you got to stay tight on a lot of your cocktails, but maybe that 5% you have some glassware, you have some ingredient that's so esoteric that no one will ever see it, right? Things like that make you think a little bit outside of the box, right? I love this example from Will Guidara, right? He was running the Modern at the MoMA. So there's a restaurant in the MoMA in New York, and he's running the Modern, and they have a gelato shop. In the gelato shop, who doesn't love gelato, right? Everyone's eating gelato, boom, boom, boom. He's like, there's a fucking spoon there that I love. They came to him, I'm like, no, you can't use that spoon. That spoon's very expensive. It actually costs 300% more than the spoons that we'd actually use. He's like, I need to have the spoon. That spoon stayed there. That's what made the difference. That's what everyone always talked about. They're like, I love the gelato, but I love the fucking spoon, right? That little kind of experience that's so damn special, right? That can change the way people think. Give people ownership of their responsibilities. You have a team, right? I love this. At 11 Madison Park, he had a guy that was a beer guy. Hey, I love beer. He would show up. He's like, this is the beer I drink. I love drinking this beer. I think you're the beer guy. He's like, no, I'm actually just a server here. He's like, you're actually the beer guy now. Empower your people to do what they love, right? That's exactly, I'm here, I'm passionate. I know I say a lot of bad words and I apologize. Haven't said enough yet. I got to say a little bit more. But I'm freaking empowered to do what I love, right? When I work my 9 jobs, one specifically, by the way, we have that espresso martini back there. That espresso martini, I work with Brugal. I do the national education for Brugal rum. When I go in there, they don't make me wear a suit, right? They don't make me say every single thing, right? They let me kind of flex a little bit. They let me bring that education and academia aspect to rum that lets me shine as a person, right? Which at the end lets them shine, right? We've become the number 2 ultra premium rum in the state of Florida within 2 years, right? Right behind another rum that I'm not going to mention. It's back there. We'll do a taste test together. Just kidding. Sacapa. But that's the vibe, right? So give people ownership of their responsibilities. Am I going the wrong way here? Am I stuck? Let me see. Okay, 95.5. I love this, right? A CEO only does 3 things. And I love exactly this, right? And we're heading this way. When it comes to a lot of the stuff we do, culture, people, and service, right? That culture, right? We go build a good, beautiful team culture. Second part of that, we're also trying to build a culture within Miami, right? I know we're always late, not really good culture on that end, but that type of culture of really saying what is around us to create something special, right? We always say in hospitality, we always have a shortage of people, right? Why is that, right? We have to ask that question to ourselves and ask it why that continues to happen. And of course, story, right? I started my story with FIU, right? I was born and raised in Miami. I wrote a cocktail book, right? If we go ahead and we talk about the rum, that elevator pitch I have about the rum, right? I can go ahead and I can tell you in my head. That Brugal 1888, it was founded in 1888 by Don Andres Brugal. He was born in Spain and makes his way over to Santiago de Cuba. And there he learns the art of rum mastery, and he makes rum in Santiago de Cuba. Unfortunately, the Spanish government had overtaken Cuba at that time, and guess what? His kids were supplying weapons to the Cuban people to overtake the Spanish government. So they told him, we're going to kill your kids or put them in jail. So he decides to pack his bags and ends up in Puerto Plata, Dominican Republic, and starts the journey of what is now 135 years of rum making. Right now, we are in our 5th generation of rum makers, and right now it's Yacil Villanueva, and she is the first female in the history of the Dominican Republic to run a rum brand, and she is the first female in the 135-year history of Brugal to create rum for the family. She is direct blood lineage. She is a great, no, too many greats, 2 greats, great-great-granddaughter of Andres Brugal. Absolutely incredible, right? That's the power of that story, right? That's the power, right? Really nailing that story, right? Understanding that narrative. Everyone wants a story. I just did a panel last week for Rum Congress. Out in the crowd is all rum brands. And they're like, how do we get our brand in here? How do we get it? And next to me is a guy from Total Wine. He's a buyer of, has everyone been to Total Wine? Of course, like fucking Costco, right? But you walk in there, and guess what? I asked the guy, how do brands, there's so many brands, how do you get into Total Wine? The guy's like, you need to tell me a good story. I need to know your story, right? And that is the power of what we are creating here in Miami, right? Trying to kind of get to those places of creating something really, really extraordinary. Create legends. I love this, right? Create legends. What are those legendary moments that make you, yourself, as an individual, your company, or your brand stick out, right? What does create legends means? Look in the upper left here. There's a family that is kind of sledding through. So this is straight out of Will Guidara's book, Unreasonable Hospitality. He is at the restaurant. They're having dinner. They're hanging out, right? A family, and they're like, we had the best time of our lives. We're actually leaving on a flight tomorrow, and this is our last meal. The only thing we didn't do was enjoy the snow and go sledding with the family, but we'll do it another time. It is what it is. Guess what Will Guidara did? He went outside. He went to the store next door. He bought sleds for the kids, right? As they were eating. He hired a limo, and he had the whole family after they had dinner, and they said, we already paid for your parking. Come into the car. You're going to go sledding in Central Park with your family, right? Unreasonable hospitality, right? It gives me goosebumps thinking about it, right? How unreasonable is that, right? That someone went over there just to have dinner, their last dinner in New York. They had a great time. He said, we had a great time. We're going to push it one step further. What is that one step further, right? Like for me, like, what is that one step? I want you guys to think about that, right? This is me right here. This is Bouchon in Coral Gables. I go to Bouchon. I'm hanging out at Bouchon. I'm having dinner with Janelle. Guess what? They said, can you guys come with me? Okay, we're done. We go. And they take us back to the kitchen to meet the staff, to see how they create everything, see how their beautiful cooking space, how they cook, the way they cook, just giving us a tour after they're done working, right? The restaurant is basically closed. We're hanging out in the back with everyone back there, right? Like, how special is that they give us, to go back there to have a tour, right? Really, really, really cool. Right in the middle, does anyone know what cocktail that is? That's a Miami Vice, baby, come on. A Miami Vice. Why do I mention that? I've actually been to 11 Madison Park. I went over there in 11 Madison Park. I'm sitting down, I'm having a meal, and shooting the shit and talking Miami stuff and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the meal, the bartender shows up, not on the menu. This is not on the menu. They don't have a pina colada. They don't have strawberry daiquiris. They don't even have a frozen drink. And the guy shows up and he's like, I made you a Miami Vice. I said, why? And he's like, you're from Miami, so I figured I'd make a Miami Vice for you. He hand shook a strawberry daiquiri and he hand shook a pina colada and he layered it for me in a beautiful shot. And I was like, holy crap. The fact that you are listening to me without me telling you something, right? That you would actually go out of your way to actually just hear the small details of my trip, right? To actually serve me a Miami Vice. That doesn't exist, right? The right-hand side, right? A hot dog. The same thing. This is 11 Madison Park. Will Guidara overhears this group, and they're like, we went to the best restaurants in New York. It was awesome. The only thing we didn't have is a dirty dog. We didn't have one of those hot dogs from a street vendor in the side, and it's fine, but we had a blast. Will Guidara goes straight out the door. They're eating what is presumably a $500 per person meal, and he goes out and he gets hot dogs and he takes it back to Chef Daniel Hum, and he plates it in one of their beautiful plates with the mustard on the side, and each of them get a New York hot dog in the middle of their $500 per person meal. And they're blown away. So much so that that memory is bigger than the actual memory of the meal, right? Those memories are the ones that create legends. Those are the big ones that we talk about, right? So things like this to think about, right? To get that flowing, right? That you put your heart, your soul, right? That passion that you love to do into what you do to create ideas like this, right? I saw Will Guidara mentioned this actually like last week, that, for example, we have our realtor, when we bought our house, he gave me a bottle of rum. He's like, I know you like rum, I got you a bottle of rum, right? And I was like, that's great, right? That is a great touch, right? Usually you got a bottle of champagne, right? What is the next step of that, right? Like if you're a realtor, right? And then he mentioned this person loved yoga and coffee, and they had like a beautiful kind of coffee pot, and a yoga mat sitting out right in their beautiful new backyard, right? To give them ideas of how to enjoy their space, right? Things like that of just going a little bit, those extra steps, right? Really, really love to hear that, right? So we start seeing kind of the evolution of what we're seeing in Unreasonable Hospitality. Let me see. This way, no, this way. And I wanted to leave it open for questions, but I think the idea here is really kind of taking what we're doing in hospitality, right? And saying hospitality belongs in everything. I say it once, and I'm going to push this in academia. I want to go and I want to start teaching med school students. I want to start teaching law students. A lot of law students have absolutely no hospitality, right? So I want to start teaching them, and I want to push the envelope of the way we can make hospitality the center focus of what we're doing in the city, right? And I'm not only talking about a restaurant. I'm not only talking about a bar. I'm talking about everything that we do, right? And that is kind of the beautiful thing of what we're doing, that out of cocktails, out of this mixology movement, out of craft, out of the hospitality community, the bartenders, that we're able to kind of start nitpicking at something that we're doing. We're in an interesting space right now, I want to say. We talk about kind of good and the inspiring stuff, and I want to say that even, we have kind of like I'm worried about things, right? For example, when it comes to the mixology movement, in the early 2000s, the internet didn't really have, you can find a cocktail, you can find a Negroni. We didn't have that, right? We'd carry around a ton of books, man. And we'd look at the books and say, I found this in the Savoy cocktail book from the 1920s. I found a rum Manhattan. Oh, the espresso martini. Found this from the early 80s from Dick Bratzel, right? I found this in an old Absolute. So we are piecing together what now becomes the foundation of what we have in the city, right? Now, as we fast forward, right, just naturally, people need to learn less, need to research less, because they have it in front of them already. But that doesn't mean you need to learn less, right? And we get stuck in that pattern of, we can probably learn less because kind of have it all here, right? But the fact of the matter is that the reason why I teach, and I'm inspired by teaching, is that we can never stop learning, right? That we have to continue to push the envelope of every single thing we do, and I'm talking about spirit specifically, but of everything that we do, right? Even she's doing kind of some more studies, right? And she's a doctor, right? She could have been done, she could have been doing a thing, and now she's studying some other random crap now, right? Super important, right? But like, we can never stop learning. And I push that for the younger people, right? For us, right? Whoever are our mentees, what can we do to help push them, right? To understand that if there's anything missing, that we can help inspire them to make sure that we can kind of protect what we've built, right? Because we've built something super special here in a lot of our industries. We need to go ahead and continue to empower them, right? We are actually, we're in a chat. I'm in a chat with 1,200 bartenders. They don't know where to get education from right now. One is starting a new Instagram account. Another one tries to go to the Bartenders Guild. We're trying to create a certification program. How do we kind of get that together and kind of collate? And that's why I love conversations like this, right? Because I love to share best practices and see how we can get to a better place, right? But the idea here is, and I want to go back to, is just hospitality, right? I think, you guys notice what is unreasonable that I did here, and I want to do something. I actually created a beautiful espresso martini that we should drink after this with a Oaxacan, Costa Rican coffee blend, right? Made with rum instead of vodka. Why? Because rum has coffee notes and caramel notes, right? And vanilla notes. And I can pull that in there and create something pretty awesome. And I got you little cafecito cups. The real idea was, but I didn't want you guys, there's no tables in front of you, was to give you guys kind of a little styrofoam cup, and we can all put into cafecito cups and share in conversation. That's what I would like to do now. Even if you don't want to drink, it's back there, it's Friday. So I'm going to drink for sure. But that's the idea, man. And I'm honored to be here, so I really appreciate you kind of giving me this platform.